another episode of Real Talk, produced and presented by the award-winning Let's Talk America with host Shayna Thornton Show. Of course, I'm Shayna. I'm executive producer and on-air host, and so excited to bring you yet another special segment of the broadcast. Well, right now I'm sitting with the one and only Dr. Monica Moore. She is an acclaimed pediatrician, and she has written a new amazing book that talks about self-esteem and self-pride, and it's for young women, but also we want those who are guardians of young boys to listen in intensely because she's going to share some great parenting tips. Dr. Moore, welcome to Let's Talk America Radio.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Shana, for having me. I am so grateful to be here today.
Oh, I love that you're on. I also love the sign that I see right next to you, be unique. I love that. We're going to have to talk about those buzzwords momentarily, but we have a tradition here, Dr. Moore, on Let's Talk America Radio, where we ask our exclusive guests to really introduce the world to who they are. Now, I've seen your CV, I've seen the resume, the bio, and it's super amazing. And we're going to give our viewers an opportunity to go to your website as well to view more information about you. But right now, in your own words, because that's so important when it's the human factor with any of our guests, what got you to where you are today? What got you to be the amazing Dr. Monica Moore?
Well, Shana, I'm originally from the sunny state of Florida and have been living in Atlanta for the last 15 years. I graduated from Xavier University and attended Morehouse School of Medicine right here in Atlanta. Like you stated before, I'm a board certified pediatrician. I am a mother, I am a wife, and I think one of the most rewarding, fulfilling, and fun roles that I have is being a mother to a sweet, sometimes sassy, but very sincere 7-year-old female. And I think that is really what got me to where I am today. That is really what got me to write the book that we'll speak a little bit more in detail about. But I feel like it's a very challenging at times role, but one that I am so grateful to be able to have that role. I'm so grateful to be able to pour into my daughter and to be able to share with her some of the experiences that I have had. And as a pediatrician, one of my goals is to educate my parents, is to empower them, and is to engage them and to allow them to be able to feel, be able to have a happy, fulfilled life. So that is something that I have a passion for. I've always wanted to give back to the community, and I feel as a pediatrician on a daily basis, I do that, but also in this platform as empowering young girls and young mothers and young boys as well, I'm able to fulfill that dream as well.
No, I love your passion. I mean, for everyone that is so, I would say, passionate. I'm going to use that word again because that's what I see when I'm hearing you talk, Dr. Moore. That it's always a personal touch to it, and I think you capture that well. You're a mother yourself, and you see so many different children along the spectrum in life, and so you're the right person to ask some tough questions to. And the tough question I want to first open up with is self-esteem. That's a buzzword for us right now. The self-esteem, the self-confidence. Give us a grade right now in society where we are. We want to talk about the adolescents. Where are they? Are we trending up? Are we trending down? Or does it vary on their use of social media? Or, and I know adolescence is a big age group, but how do we break it down? And more importantly, once you answer where we are with the grade, how do we get them to be the best they can be?
Right. And so I do agree that it does, the spectrum is really large as it relates to self-esteem. And I think there are a lot of platforms and a lot more talk as it is right now talking about the importance of self-esteem. But I believe one of the things that is really important and really vital and really what lays the foundations for our young girls and our young boys' self-esteem is the experiences that they have. So it's in the home. Are they being nurtured? Are they being loved? Are they being told how important they are, how great they are, the amazing things that they're doing right now, and the amazing things that they can do in the future. And then what is society telling them? Is society telling them that they aren't good enough? Is society telling them that they aren't worthy? And are they believing the things that they're seeing? And I believe that social media has a role in it. And I think that there are some positives as well as some negatives as it relates to social media. So that's why I always talk to my families about being very involved in their child's interaction with social media. So having a knowledge of what sites are going on, talking to their children about what they might be viewing, and then also having that open dialogue. I talk about having open-ended conversations at every age and at every level specific to their developmental needs. But I do believe that it's the foundation is really laid in the home, but social media plays a huge factor as that relates to social self-esteem. And so for a young person who is searching for something, they may be searching for it outside of the home, But that's when those parental and those intentional conversations and pouring into them on a daily basis and teaching them to affirm themselves daily and having those pictures on the walls of, great people that have become before them, but also themselves, and putting affirmations on maybe the mirror. My daughter and I, every morning, that's one of the things we do. We do two things. We begin our morning with gratitude, because I believe when you begin your morning with gratitude, thanking, being thankful for what you do have and not focusing the things that you don't have or what you haven't achieved, but what you have achieved and what you are going to achieve. Because my word for this year was manifest. So I truly believe in manifesting those things that you desire for yourself in your life and speaking them out. And so having that daily, we do our gratitude and then our affirmations. We speak them, we write them. And so I encourage everyone to do the same, because I really believe that our words have tremendous power. We can either break our children down with our words or we can build them up.
Yeah, so, so true. You speak a lot of truths. Right now, before we dive more into your book, Dr. Moore, I do want us to talk about what you just brought up. You said speaking truth, speaking empowered words, speaking positivity into our children. This is Real Talk for Real People. You're watching Let's Talk America Radio. I'm Shayna, of course, but we are on with the one and only Dr. Monica Moore, and she is talking about our adolescents, our teens, talking about self esteem, self love, and our parents play a role in that. And that's the tough part to all of this, in so many ways for so many people right now in our society. Dr. Moore, talk to us about parents being able to be real with themselves and authentic when they sometimes reflect back on their own childhood and perhaps how they were spoken to, perhaps how they were reared, how they were nurtured, how they were raised in so many ways, and how, if we do not at least take a healthy look at that, a healthy analysis for all of us, right? If you had a wonderful childhood, somewhere in between, if it was an extremely bad one, how it's important for us to evaluate that, right? Just like you did about and where we are with self-esteem, for us to evaluate where we came from and how we're going to perhaps change or improve or edit, if you will, how we treat and how we engage our own children.
Right. And I believe so. The word engagement, I think, is really important. And I think that so many individuals may have grown up in a household in which they were not engaging with their family members. Maybe they had two parents. It was a two family home that were working a lot, didn't have the time or the energy to be able to pour into their children. Maybe it's a one parent home. And so survival was the most important thing to them. And so we really truly are a product of our environment. So we can either continue to emulate what we saw in our own homes and say, if it was a loving and nurturing environment where the engagement was there, where the self-love was there, where the positive self-talk was there, or we can try not to create to continue the generational not engaging with our parents. And so I think it's important as a parent to recognize foundationally where you came from as it relates to how your household was an embodied self-love and self-talk. And if it's not something that you are comfortable with or have experienced yourself, then I think it's important to take a self-evaluation of that. I truly believe in the importance of therapy. There's so many individuals, I think there's a stigma as it relates to seeking help for mental health in general, because mental health is our total health. It is how we are emotionally, how we are socially, how we are psychologically. And so taking stock in that. And so if you're having some challenges where it relates to being able to effectively communicate with your children, to be able to effectively parent, then seeking that help, because I feel like you can't, a broken person is difficult for a broken individual to be able to pour into effectively their children and help them not only just survive in life, but I truly believe that it's important that our children thrive in life. And so not just existing, but having that fulfillment.
So true. It is about the fulfillment of all of us as well. The new book, what inspired you to write it?
So having personally experienced the shame and the ridicule, the isolation as it related to me just being really different from my peers and feeling, isolated in many in situations. I can vividly remember, when I don't know if you remember where you were in middle school and they were picking teams. And so they would have a team captain. And so the team captain got up there and was picking individuals for their team. And I pretty much was always the last one to get picked. Never really felt like I fit in, never really felt like I had a place, and truly just being taunted by many of the individuals that were surrounding me and my peers. And so when I began to see that same young girl in my office, and that is what was one of the things that prompted me as well, because I would see the hurt, I would see the shame, I would see them crying about just not fitting in. And then definitely having my own daughter and wanting to be able to help her to live a life unapologetically, to live a life of boldness, to live a life of courageousness. So I felt like it was something that I had a unique position to be able to do, not only because it was a life experience that I had, but also being a pediatrician and seeing daily the effects of that low self-esteem, and that how those daily experiences that they encountered was truly affecting them in a negative way. And so I wanted to uplift and empower those individuals.
What a powerful testimony. And we appreciate you sharing so much here on Let's Talk America Radio. You are watching Real Talk. We are talking to the one and only, the author of the new acclaimed book, Be Unique. She's Dr. Monica Moore. She's a board certified pediatrician out of the Atlanta metropolitan area. Dr. Moore, I want to ask you something, because you did mention when children perhaps are different or unique, right? And I think we are certainly in a place in society where individuals accept uniqueness and differences much more than we have previously in the past. I think most of us can be realistic about that. But let's talk to the child that may be listening to us right now or watching us, and they're 14 or 15, and they say they're different and they want to feel good about those differences, right? Because we're all created different in our own way. But how do you do that when there's a parent perhaps trying to push, though, and their parents, it may mean well, they're not trying to cause malice or any sort of bad intent for their children, but they're saying, well, why can't you be more like so and so? And as a pediatrician, unfortunately, I'm sure there are incidents where you've witnessed, even perhaps in your own visual practice, where parents would be saying, well, be like your sister, be like your brother, be like your cousin, be like my niece or nephew. How does that child deal with that at adolescent, and how does that parent try to correct that situation? Because obviously you just spoke about when people come from their own past and try to address that. But how do you correct that immediately? Because I don't need to tell you, one, being a mother, two, being a pediatrician, that it is so important, this journey of parenting, right? None of us are perfect. There's no blueprint, because your blueprint that works for your daughter may not work for my son, right? It varies because every child is different. But how do we immediately address and correct something that does need to be addressed immediately, such as that, so the child cannot perhaps have those issues that come from that sort of rhetoric, if you will, today and later in life?
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I definitely believe that that's a theme that occurs on a daily basis. And I have definitely witnessed that, particularly in my own office. And I think one of the most important things that we as parents can do is listen to our children. Really, really listen to them. Like, what are some of the things that they are wanting to do? What are some of their passions? What are some of their desires? And not necessarily deciding for them. And so even at the tender age of 7 with my daughter, I'll ask her specifically, what do you want to try? What is the next thing that you want to do? Because I do believe in exposure and I do believe in experiences. But I know from experience also, in being forced to do something, you're not really going to give it your all. And you're also maybe going to have some resentment from your parents. So I want parents to think about that. I want parents to, first, you want to motivate your child. You want your child to be self-motivated. You want them to experience things in life, but you also don't want them to feel like it was forced upon them. So just taking from a parental standpoint, say, yes, I know I want your child, I know that you want your child to succeed. And I know that there are certain things that you want your child to do in life, but is it going to be fulfilling to them personally? Is it something that they want or something that you want? And so I think that is one of those things that, comparison really is a thief of all joy, right? So when we personally compare ourselves to other people and we look at their lifestyle and we look at what we think that they have or what they are doing, we think that we're not doing enough. And so I think that's one of the things that really can steal your joy, is really can affect your self-esteem. And so if we are if we are doing that to our own children, what is that saying about us? That's really saying that we don't value what they want to do. We really don't value their input. We really don't value the things that they desire for themselves. And so I think it's really important as parents that we recognize listening to them and what they desire to do.
So, so true. And I think you're right when you acknowledge that parents do have an idea of what success may be, whatever that may be. If that's something in medicine, if it's something in sports, they're saying this is what it takes. And I know. And often, let's be practical, right, Dr. Moore? It's often driven by their own failures or fears, right? I know what it's like because I was there. I could have done this, but that stopped me. So I'm going to make sure you go this way. I think to some degree, in all fairness to parents, in a lot of those situations, the intent is out of love. The intent is out of some sort of influence to want their children to be better than them, perhaps in their mind, whatever better, right? Whatever comparison, how we choose to define it. But you're so so right when you're saying you need to listen. But let's also talk about a generation of parents and guardians right now that may have been raised from the concept of you do as I say, right, as I do. So you are seen but not necessarily heard. And I know for many younger parents that are listening in, they're like, that's absurd. But there are many parents, millions of them, who did experience that. And on one note, they can say, okay, that was wrong, that wasn't right. But you and I both know, and you're a pediatrician, habits that you're familiar with are very hard to break away from. And we know that parenting is a beautiful journey, but it's a journey where your patience is often challenged, among other things. And so sometimes those individuals will go back to what they're familiar with, just do it because I said it. Or which I'm not saying we can't obviously want to criticize people's parenting because in different situations may be different on certain things that need to be done. But the listening part, the engaging children part, millions of Americans or people around the world just aren't familiar with that concept, Dr. Moore. I mean, no, no, we're not going to explain why that's not a good decision. You're just going to do it. But talk about, I know this is a tricky, touchy subject right now for many people watching, but talk about the pros and the cons of that, because I can see a lot of cons right off the gate. But I mean, you play a fair referee for us, Dr. Moore.
So I do agree. So as a parent, right, our goal and our desire is to protect our children, is to provide for our children, and it's to be there for them for whatever their needs are. But I think also what we're teaching them again, if we don't really listen to what the things that they want to do, then we're not teaching them to be able to be their own advocate. We're not teaching them to be able to step outside of the box and maybe do something that's new, that's different, that's uncharted. So I think the exploration of new and different things and doing things in a different way broadens not only you as a parent and your ability to parent differently, but also your child's experiences. And so I know it may be challenging because I definitely have heard that, do as I say and don't give explanation as to why. But I do believe that they do deserve that. They do deserve why you have a particular stance about why you said, don't do this, don't do that, because I believe in being inquisitive and I believe in raising emotionally intelligent children so that they can think for themselves, so they can understand the why behind the choices that they make and the why behind the choices that we make for them, and specifically those that we want to make sure that they're doing to keep them safe. So the why is important.
Yeah, and that is so, so key. I mean, when you talk to so many educators and teachers, they keep pushing critical thinking skills. And I think you've explained it very well for many parents to understand that why, not saying obviously there are certain things that you're saying to keep the child safe. There are some things that are going to be age appropriate that they may not understand, the danger of a car if they're 2 or 3 years old, obviously. But you're right to build on critically thinking children for them to grow up and be logical human beings, because that is so, so key, to always keep that in the forefront of our minds, because sometimes, and right, and there are many guilty parents that may be guilty or charged with this, and many I'm sure are raising their hands right now. But so many times things are said because you're in a hurry, you have to get things done, right? I mean, I think that's fair. You're a working mom, you get it. I mean, we just don't have time for that right now. Just do it because I said do it, and maybe sometimes you don't have the time to go back and address it. But I want to talk about something I know you mentioned previously when we talked before the show, talking about as parents, and I think this does go into building self esteem for our children as well, talking about how it's important for them to see us even in a vulnerable state. Because, so many parents, and this could be cultural for many communities, that mom and dad are the end all be all, right? And they're tough as nails and they can handle it all and they can work 2 and 3 jobs and not be stressed about it. And I know again, off the line, you just talked about how when children see us as vulnerable, when children see us as having those concerns and needing to address those concerns through self-care or maybe accountability, or even maybe saying, you know what, that wasn't the best behavior for dad or mom to really exert. You believed, shared with me that children can be strengthened by that. Now, there's a group of individuals in our generation and others that are like, wait a minute though, wait, mom and dad are supposed to be held to a certain standard and they're on a pedestal, and they do no wrong. And there are many people I know, Dr. Moore, who say, well, I do that because my mom did it. There's no thinking behind why they do it. It's because my mom did it, because my dad did it. But talk to us about that, of being vulnerable and having a true healthy understanding that mom and dad aren't perfect, right? And it's okay not to be perfect.
Right, right. And so I definitely believe that vulnerability is key, and that's for young adults, that's for adults, that's for parents. I think we live in a time that, we're so shamed to show our emotions, that we feel that we're supposed to always be tough, that we don't feel. And I think I will believe that I believe that the pandemic has truly taught us a lot about being vulnerable. It's taught us a lot about putting things in perspective. It's taught us a lot about prioritizing certain things. And I think that the vulnerability piece is important because we are human. We're all living this human experience. And so if we don't show our children how to feel emotions, that it's okay to feel emotions, they're just going to bottle that up. And eventually that has to come out. It has to come out in some way, shape, or form. But we want to teach them how to be able to effectively communicate how they're feeling, effectively communicate what that particular situation or that scenario did to them. This morning, case in point, I had that same conversation with my own daughter about, okay, well, what is it that you're feeling? Can you tell mommy why you feel this way? Using your words and being able to do that. And I think when we don't show them the vulnerability, show them that we feel too, going back to the pandemic, saying that, this is new for all of us. This is a new time that we're dealing with. Mommy and daddy are a little bit concerned as well. But what we are here to do as parents, or we're here to protect you. We're here to continue to provide for you, but we're here to also answer your questions. And so I believe in opening up that door, asking open-ended questions about what the child is feeling, but also letting them know that we too don't have all of the answers. And I'll always say, don't tell them something that's not true. Tell them you don't have the answer and that you'll look it up, or maybe we'll look it up together. Maybe that'll be a project that we'll do together. But they really do need to know that we are human. We have feelings. It's okay to show your feelings, but it's also important to channel and determine where that emotion is coming from and how you can effectively deal with that emotion and cope with that particular emotion effectively.
Wow, so so true. The buzzword there, emotions, and effectively addressing it. Thank you so much for being authentic and transparent with us. She is the acclaimed author of Be Unique. It's the one and only board certified pediatrician, Dr. Monica Moore. She's on Real Talk, produced by Let's Talk America Radio, and she is sharing some wonderful jewels and tips about raising kids, in particular adolescents, teens, to have self-esteem. But you know what? Believe it or not, she's talking about parenting and how it starts there. So many times we say, well, it's all on the kid, but Dr. Moore makes a very valid argument that it also starts with how we speak to our children, how we engage our children, and also how we address our own past history of how we were raised. All great, great information. We've got to bring you back on Let's Talk America Radio. But I did have to ask you this: when it comes to self-esteem, when it comes to feeling good about your body type, your body size, we can't help but think and go to the fact that many children pick up some of these influences by individuals outside the household. So parenting is so, so key. You know that. But Dr. Moore, you also know there are other influences that come along that are prioritizing their life the older they get. Adolescents, that age group, right? Many parents can agree when they're 5, 6, 7. You certainly have more influence. Mommy and daddy are the world. You're right. I should read every night because you said it, mommy. But many of us know when they get 13 or 14, of course, other ideas come in their head, and friends. And it's important to have friends and individuals outside of the household and outside of your bloodline. We know that. But talk to that parent right now, maybe perhaps that dad who was listening and watching us, Dr. Moore, and he's saying, I hear you, but my son is perhaps hanging around a bad influence. And there's an old adage, I don't need to tell you, you're a mom, you get it, where they say sometimes when you pull them away from are the very people they go towards, they gravitate towards. So how do you address that? How do you address perhaps influences that are negative, that aren't really helping with the self-esteem or self-confidence or just healthy life choices? Because there are many, many parents out there right now saying, we've got to get that answer.
Yes. And it's really important. And I think that community and connection is so important. And I believe that that is something that we need to talk about. Our relationships with individuals is so important, but how we choose those. And I do have a chapter in the book that speaks specifically about choosing your friends wisely. And one of the things that I'll always ask my parent children when they come into the office, I'll ask them to tell me about their friends. And I'll ask them specifically, what are the characteristics that you find really important in a friend? And I'll ask them to give me those characteristics. And then I'll ask them also to say, okay, in your friend group, how would they describe you? And so it really kind of opens up the dialogue to see what characteristics our young children are finding important in a friend, and are they truly getting that back from their friendships? And I believe that when we have friendships and we have interactions and we have connection with our friends, we should walk away feeling good. Like we should walk away with a smile. We should walk away feeling good about ourselves. We shouldn't walk away with our head down. We shouldn't walk away feeling judged or unworthy or that we are not enough. And oftentimes we will stay in those friendships just because it's a friendship that a friend we've had since we were 5 years old. But you can tell that that friendship really, is something that is not healthy for you. And I tell my patients to be really careful about their space and guard it and have boundaries and not allowing toxic people to stay in their situation. And so it's really important that we have those conversations early and often with our kids.
So, so true. And I can't help but go back to this, even though we're talking about friends and peers. But what better way for that to be modeled by mom and dad, right? Because when you talk about toxic relationships, if mom and dad are engaging in one with platonic friends, or even within that household, Dr. Moore, I mean, don't you think the best example we can show them are certainly healthy relationships and healthy rapport building activities?
It definitely, definitely. I believe it definitely, going back to what we talked before, it definitely happens in the home. Our kids, they may not say anything, but they're listening, they're paying attention, they're listening to our body language, they're paying attention when we're not communicating with one another. And so they're picking up on that. So I think modeling the behavior for a healthy relationship is something that we owe it to our children to do. So they then themselves know how to engage in healthy relationships and what not to allow in a relationship and how not to allow someone to treat them with dignity and respect, and make them feel worthy and not make them feel less than themselves.
Yeah. You brought up relationships, and we've been talking about that buzzword. But help us right now for those who have young daughters or young men who are 15, 16. Perhaps they're entering the dating scene, right? Very normal here in the United States of America, of course. But what sort of conversation should that parent be having? Because they're saying, hey, I'm a good parent, I'm engaging, I try my best. But and I know so much when they engage with other individuals, if they're dating or just friends, there's a lot you're not seeing. There's a lot you're not hearing because they're developing their own relationships separate from the household. So, what conversation should mom and or dad, I would imagine it should be both, ideally, if it's together or separate, having with both genders? Because I know there's sometimes a lot of focus. Obviously, we're entering October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, very important month. We have provide a lot of coverage on the topic, but a lot of it does address young women. And I've interviewed so many advocates on that topic, Dr. Moore, where they have said we cannot leave out the conversation with our young men because obviously we do know the statistics. Usually it's a woman who may be attacked or beaten or abused emotionally or physically by men or boys, if you will, in the sense of young men they're dating. But how do you address the situation, according to the advocates I've talked to, if you don't talk to young men about what's healthy, right? What's healthy in a relationship? What should you be doing? What should you not be doing? And obviously, I think a lot of times parents just focus with a young girl, don't let anyone misuse you, don't let people abuse you. And that's the extent of the conversation. Model what that conversation should look like for our boy and girl.
Right. So the conversation definitely should happen. So I do believe, for instance, and I've seen some fathers do this, they will take their daughter out on a date, right? So they are their daughter's first actual date and really show that daughter what it is that they should expect from that individual, how they should be treated, should the door, opening up doors, pulling out chairs, things of that nature. So I think that one of the ways that the parent can model what a healthy relationship looks like is by actually going on that date with that individual. That we one where they could do that. And so in a home where that's say there's father's not available, whatever adult male figure that's in the home can actually show the young girl in that specific way. And I think from, as far as the males are concerned, I think moms and dads can play a huge role talking to their young man, their son, about what it is to treat the girls with respect. Also making sure that they are, as far as, curfews, what the expectation of some parents actually will talk together, right? So the mother and the father of the daughter, the mother and the father of the son, and just have a conversation because, I think that it's important that expectations are laid out. I think it's important that communication is essential. And I think it's also important that they're recognizing what things that might come up, and even having an open conversation saying when you don't feel that you've been treated in the best way, having a voice, because we do know how much, intimate partner abuse is occurring with our children, and they're not saying anything for fear of what that might mean for that individual that is the abuser. And so I think having that conversation younger and earlier, but both parents can try to model that behavior and have that conversation.
That is so true. And I can't help but think about the example you said with your daughter earlier today. We need to use communication. We need to verbalize and talk about our emotions, because I think when people get angry, it is not okay to use your hands, right? And that has to be expressed to both genders early on, like you're doing so wonderfully with your daughter, and millions of other parents are as well. And then when they do get older and they get caught up in romantic situations or romantic relationships, that they're still able to practice that good behavior, right? And not dismiss that. And I think it's also key for people, do you agree, Dr. Moore, to when they do find themselves in a situation that's hostile or overly aggressive or one that's not healthy, that both parties be able and encouraged to walk away, right? Because and I think that's so true. If they're even if is a teenage boy and he's with a young woman and she's angry and she uses her fist or she uses choice words that aren't healthy, that he has to be able as well to
Right.
say, this is not a good situation and this needs to end.
Right, right. It should not all fall on one particular party in the relationship. Both individuals should recognize the healthy way to handle the situation would be, like you stated, to walk away from it for
Yes.
both parties involved.
Yeah. I love talking to you, Dr. Moore, because talking about being unique and all the great tips for raising children with high self-esteem, I can't help but think what a great conversation for adults as well, both men and women. I love that. Of course, we're going to have you back on right now. Before you leave us with a few gems, top two or three tips for parents out there that are watching you that say, help us out. I've got this young boy, this young girl, and I want them to be the best they can be. But you and I both know to be the best you can be, whatever that is, if that's a plumber, if that's a physician, if that's a journalist, if that's a PR manager, that it has to start with you believing in yourself, right? And we want that to be a process that happens as early as possible and not later in life. However, for those that are watching us, if you've just been empowered now at 55, no problem at all. Congratulations to you. But I'm sure you would agree that you would want your children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews to be empowered earlier on. And right now, we're going to exclusively give the microphone to Dr. Moore as she shares some lasting gems with us for our most precious asset, our children.
They really truly are our most precious asset, and I believe they are truly a gift. And I'm so grateful to be able to parent a young child. And so, to answer your question, I love acronyms. So, the acronym that I would use to surmise what it means to really truly help our children to live their best life is Be You. And so the B stands for believe. Truly believe in yourself, bet on yourself. Always know that you have it within you to be whatever it is that you desire to be, and don't let anything ever stop you, not even yourself, to stop you from that. And then the E would be to embrace your differences. We definitely talked about that. We talked about the uniqueness. To me, I believe that your uniqueness is really truly the characteristic that makes you great. And so believe embracing everything about you that's unique. And then the why would be, excuse me, the why would be you are enough. And I spoke earlier about the fact that we so much times we compare ourselves to other people, but really embracing that you are enough, you do enough, and you have enough. And so trying to compare yourself to other people, you will definitely steal your joy. And then the O is own your greatness. Do not let anything or anyone dim your light. Let that light shine, let that light be bright, and don't let anyone take that away from you. And then the you is going to be, excuse me, use your voice. You are never too young to allow the voice that you have to speak volumes for you. Your voice has power. Your voice can change the world. Your voice can make a difference. So don't allow your age and your stage in life to ever make you think that you can't make a change.
I love that. Oh, wow. What a great acronym, and easy to remember as well, and very empowering. And to all of our adolescents, I know they are taking all that in, but for all of us adults too, friendly reminders of things we should be. I love that. I love that. Be unique. Dr. Moore, for individuals that are watching us or listening in intensely and want more additional information, where should they go? And I do want to mention this. Obviously, she's a board certified pediatrician, acclaimed and very popular. Of course, her appearance today on Let's Talk America Radio was for educational purposes only. For more specific questions concerning the emotional well-being of your adolescent or child, you are recommended to speak with your specific pediatrician. Where can they go for more information about you, Dr. Moore? I know you're based in Atlanta. Tell us more about your practice.
Yes, definitely. They can find more about me and my virtual practice at premierpediatrics.com. You can also find me on all on IG and Facebook at Dr. Monica Cares. So that is premierwellnesspediatrics.com is my website. You can find all about all of the services I provide. My book is actually on the website as well if you'd like to purchase that for the young girl in your life. And then again, you can find me on IG and Facebook at Dr. Monica Cares.
I love it. Dr. Monica Kears, Dr. Monica Moore to us here at Let's Talk America Radio. Thank you for all of your advocacy, your messaging today, right on point. I know it's helping some young woman or some young man, and also some parents, some mom or dad or grandparent or auntie or godmom or goddad out there listening in, because it takes a village to raise our children to be the most productive so they can go back and help all the villages as much as possible. Thank you for watching Let's Talk America Radio. We offer real talk for real people. We bring in the best and the brightest, exclusive guests that talk about the topics you want to know more about, okay? So if you're saying, well, I don't have a daughter, I don't have a son, but I would hope all of us are vested into our children being the best they can be, because after all, we're going to need doctors like Dr. Moore in the future. We're going to need nurses. We're going to need more teachers. We're going to need more plumbers, more city managers. Wherever you are, this society and community has to keep going. And it's going to take all of us to get there. So our most precious assets are our children, and all hands on deck. For additional information on Let's Talk America Radio, please visit ltaradio.com. That's ltaradio.com. Or you can follow us on social media, hashtag LTA Radio. We got another episode coming up soon, but you are encouraged to share this episode. Underneath that, the comments, let us know your thoughts, okay? Let us know your opinions, any questions. We'll go back and share those with Dr. Moore. And also tag a family or friend, okay? Because this episode empowered. Thank you, Dr. Moore, for all you do for communities out there. We certainly appreciate you. And I'm going to say this, be unique.
Thank you, Shannon, for having me. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate your opportunity.
Thank you so much. Everyone stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Stay informed.